I'm Rob Kirkpatrick, and this is Kirkpatrick and Company. Welcome into the vault in downtown Lafayette. So today we talked to Joe Zanco. He is the president and CEO of Catalyst Bank, this season's sponsor of Kirkpatrick and Company. We got to talk about community banking, local investments, local decision making. It's what makes the Catalyst difference, not to mention all the technology and investment happening there. A great conversation from a guy who just has a great reputation in our community and is celebrating 30 years in banking in the state of Louisiana. Our conversation with Joe Zanco from Catalyst Bank today on Kirkpatrick and Company. Joe Zanco, welcome into the vault. It really feels fitting. You might be the most appropriate person to have in the vault. I appreciate you joining us on Kirkpatrick and Company.
Glad to be here, Rob. Thank you.
Look, the partnership with Catalyst for this season it's just been so interesting. I couldn't have handpicked a better partner to talk about these stories about people who are investing in communities, because it is at such the core of what Catalyst has been all about. If they listen to the podcast, they've heard Catalyst before, but if someone's listening to it, for the first time, kind of talk about the focus of what Catalyst Bank is doing in our community.
Yes, our mission is in our name, Catalyst Bank. Our mission is to be catalyst for economic growth in our communities. We do that most effectively by helping local businesses grow, because when they do, they add jobs and they give families a chance to build better lives.
So you're no newbie to this profession. I have in my notes here 30 years in banking this year.
I didn't realize it until April or May, but it's been 30 years. It's been a really good industry for me. Highly regulated, highly competitive, but I chose this, and it's been fantastic. People think a banking job is a boring job. It's not. We get to help dreams come true every day, whether it's putting somebody in their first home or helping a business grow. We get to make people's dreams come true.
How much of that do you get to do? Obviously, you're the president and CEO of Catalyst Bank, but you're seeing these customers coming in. You're actually seeing those dreams come true. What is that like, or how much do you get to do it?
Well, it's fantastic. Every single day we get to do it, and it's such a joy. And if you're going to be a good banker, what's really, really important too is we love making dreams come true. It's also important when we tell folks, hey, pause and think about this a little bit before you do it. We never want to put a person in a position where they have outborrowed their capacity to pay that.
That's really interesting. I was one of these people before you moved back to Louisiana. We were living in Atlanta. We bought our first house. Of course, just went the big bank route. We lived in a big city. I feel like we probably had 100 interactions with the person who was preparing everything for, every deposit and everything else. I moved back to Louisiana. I work with a local bank who my father-in-law happens to be the bank president. So he just said, go talk to him. And I swear it was a 20-minute conversation, and I feel like 5 documents, because you were able to establish that relationship that already existed. And that's so much a part of community bank.
It still is. And relationship continues to be incredibly important. You're trusting me with your money. So I doggone well better be trustworthy. And that's what we rely on in community banking. Every now and again, one of the big mega banks gets in trouble for selling people stuff they didn't need.
Yeah.
Well, you're not going to find that in our institution. And as I say that, relationship continue to be very, very important. Technology is also important. So as a community bank, we have had to invest heavily in technology, because you may love me and love our relationship, but for you to move over to our bank, we need to have the technology tools that you need to conduct your business efficiently. And that's where our company has chosen to invest.
Well, and I think in the past, we can talk about where we are in 2026 now, but I feel like that used to be an argument. That's not even an argument anymore. Like, why leave XYZ bank? Because all my accounts are there and the app is there. I'm telling you, I've been able to look under the hood as a customer. You have everything.
Well, again, that's where we've chosen to invest. And what's really, really neat, some of the coolest things that ever happen, when somebody is banking with one of the mega banks, they perceive that if they come over to us, a smaller community bank, they will lose ground technology-wise. That's not the case 99% of the time. Why? Because we bought a great integrated solution that works, where oftentimes those big mega banks have cobbled together multiple systems. One of the sweetest calls I get is 60 or 90 days after we've moved a client from those mega banks.
Yeah.
They'll call me and say, Joe, this is easier. And we're charging them less as well. So those are some of the best days for me.
That's really cool, because consolidation is a part of just the business landscape in general. And I think sometimes what happens in those big kind of conglomerate situations or big kind of transfers that happen is, customers are just sort of treated like one group, and maybe it's not so individual. But
That's right.
you guys have been able to really capitalize on that individual experience.
We certainly have. And we invest in our bankers and in technology. And it's our bankers' job to go out and build authentic personal relationships with our customers and be reliable and be people they can trust and know that they're getting a good deal when they pick up the phone and call us.
I always think it's funny because when I do think about community banking whole model, it's if something goes wrong, even if it's maybe 5 years down the road from when I signed this mortgage document, I still know that Joe's going to be there. I know that person is going to be there. How is that as far as like managing a company like that? Because your bankers are actual members of the community. It's one of the core differences.
Well, our values become very important to us. And if you give me 2 minutes, I kind of describe them for you. So the first is truth. And every company everywhere has honesty as one of their values. I get it, okay? The way that we try to take it further is truth means being honest even when it's tough. That means admitting when you're wrong. And when you think about your personal and your professional life, so many people get dug in because they can't admit that they're wrong, that we don't move further faster. When I'm willing to admit that I'm wrong, we move further faster. Okay, that's the first one. Humility is the second one. We treat everybody with dignity and respect. A couple of ways I describe this to people. And whenever I'm interviewing someone, we go through these values in intricate detail. Is if you're too good to pick up the piece of trash in the parking lot as you're walking through it, you probably don't belong with us. And another way I illustrate it is, you are the way you treat the fast food clerk when she gets your order wrong. That's who you are. And we've got to be the type of people who still know how to treat people with decency when things don't go our way. Impact is the next value. Impact means the world is full of problem identifiers, and we value those people. What we really value is people who are also willing to invest the energy in solving problems, all right? The next one is a little bit different. Our value is now. We'll let our competitors wait till tomorrow. We're going to serve our clients with a strong sense of urgency. And lastly, and on the relationship front, is connection, as we value and we initiate authentic relationships, because that ultimately is our differentiator. In a banking world, mature industry, where people perceive a loan is a loan is a loan, a deposit is a deposit, is we've got to be able to distinguish ourselves by having authentic relationships.
Well, and sometimes it is just that personal connection that you know who you're speaking to. I love the stories of local companies who've been offered, untold sums of money to move places that were maybe more convenient for an industry, more convenient for shipping. But they don't want to lose that core of what it means to be South Louisiana and how it is. And that's what I really see with Catalyst Bank is you're so involved. All you have to do is look at the social media for Catalyst Bank and realize how involved you are just in community events and being invested in what's happening, and banking's a part of that.
Well, and it's certainly not just me. It's our folks. And when you call our company, you're going to get a human being in this community that's going to seek to help you.
Catalyst Bank is a sponsor of Kirkpatrick and Company, the presenting sponsor this season. So thank you. First of all, we've had some really great conversations, and every time it comes back to investment. And it's really funny because very naturally, we take these breaks just like you heard, and we talk about Catalyst Bank. As soon as we come back, I will say this is going to be episode 7 or 8. At least 5 of those, someone has a personal experience with Catalyst Bank or with you. And you are so humble to not make it about you, but your reputation for banking, we said 30 years in this area, it carries a ton of weight. I mentioned before the break, we're going to talk about Lakeside Bank. That is another bank that's coming into the Catalyst fold. Can you tell us about it? What does that mean?
Well, let's take a step back before we dive into Catalyst, first of all. Let's talk about bank consolidation from a historical perspective. Yeah. So back in the mid-'80s, and I'm barely old enough to remember this, banks essentially could not cross parish or county lines across our country. So if you were a business leader in a community and you wanted to create a bank to be a catalyst in your community, you needed to create that bank. And so across our country, we've seen thousands upon thousands of banks created. Well, in the mid-'80s, they first allowed you to go across parish lines and then across state lines. So the environment has changed considerably. And so what you're left with in our country is thousands upon thousands of banks across the nation. That yields some natural inefficiency in this day and age, right? You've got 1,000 accounting departments, IT departments, all of that stuff. So
Probably different regulations depending on where you are.
different banking regulators as well. But the whole point being is, during the entirety of my banking career, which started in 1996, our industry has been consolidated. That's kind of the top line reason is people have been finding efficiency as you can cross parish and state lines already. So fast forward to today, is because technology has gotten so good, our customers' behavior has changed considerably. So we've seen consolidation for a long time. We're going to continue to see consolidation. What has happened in Acadiana, unfortunately, over of course last decade or plus, is our banks unfortunately have been on, I'm going to call it the wrong end of the consolidation. We've seen a lot of our local institutions go away, and with that have gone a lot of banking headquarters jobs. It is our mission to change that and to acquire and grow our company, and again, bring some of those headquarters jobs back to our community, so that Lafayette can once again be a banking center in our state. Alrighty. Just a couple of months ago, we announced that we are acquiring Lakeside Bank in Southwest Louisiana. They're based in Lake Charles, a fantastic bank that has done a great job serving their clients. They're actually bigger than us. So through this transaction, we're going to more than double the size of our institution. Wow. We are right now in the process of their shareholders have to approve it. Their shareholder meeting is actually coming up very soon. And then the banking regulators have to approve it. We're feeling really good about that. We're hopeful we'll close the transaction in mid-July and then have a systems conversion in November.
So that's no small task.
What I tell people, and it's not just in the banking industry, I've got lots of friends who have been on the buy side being acquirers. It is not for the faint of heart. We ask our employees to step up in a big way to get this transaction done. We also have a lot of work to do to welcome our new employees into the fold in our company. So we've been spending a lot of time in Lake Charles, make sure we're getting to know one another. And it's not for lazy people to do mergers.
So what if let's just say there's a current Lakeside Bank customer that's listening right now? What do you hope they expect? When that trade, or what do you hope they experience, I should say, when that transition happens? Like what's on the billboard?
Yeah. So first of all, their customers value banking with their people, right? People who live in their community. So they're going to see the same faces. We've told everyone that in a customer-facing position, they have a role with our company. As we're getting to know them, they're fantastic people who do a wonderful job facing our clients. So their clients are going to continue to see the same human being, which is critically important. As we evaluate our technology offerings, we think they're going to see an upgrade in technology. Lakeside had good technology. Ours is fantastic. So they're going to see some new tools that they didn't have before available to them. They're going to see a Louisiana bank committed to Louisiana and committed to growing jobs in Southwest Louisiana.
I want to ask, can we peek under the hood just a little bit about what goes into even identifying a bank that you're going to acquire? I mean, is it number of customers? Obviously, you said they're bigger than Catalyst Bank, but what exactly are you looking for? What are those figures?
Well, I'll talk about, so there are three primary reasons for a bank to choose to sell. And in our industry, it is banks are sold, not bought, okay?
Yeah.
Oftentimes, it is board or leadership succession. Folks are getting up there and getting to the point of wanting to retire. You can have shareholder liquidity needs for a private bank, and that's a reason, or then regulatory trouble. Now, fortunately for us, in the case of Lakeside, they had just reached a point where some of their senior leadership was nearing retirement age, and that created the opportunity in the first place. So then you dive into, will this be a good fit for us, righty? The numbers have to drive a key part of the discussion. So we do an extensive level of modeling on what our two companies would look like together, and it has to hit those hurdles. We're a publicly traded company on NASDAQ. CLST is our ticker symbol. So we've got to make sure we're meeting financial metrics. And then ultimately, the cultures have to blend, and they're never exactly alike. And so what we attempt to do, as I mentioned earlier, as it relates to values, is we attempt to get out as front of that as quickly as possible, help people understand what our expectations are. And we've done enough studying on the company. We know that their people are going to fit very well into our fold.
I just imagine this, like, I don't know, coming together over Boudin or something out on I-10, like go to that water park that's halfway built in between and just come together, because there is so much in common. Between Lake Charles and the Acadiana area, much more similar than if you were to combine something maybe New Orleans or North Louisiana. And maybe that will happen in the future, but it seems like the culture should melt just a little bit.
Well, you know what? Lake Charles is full of hardworking people, just like Acadiana. And when you drive through that community, I was there yesterday as well, taking some non-interstate travel routes between our branches, is the energy infrastructure in Lake Charles, Louisiana is phenomenal. And there's so many wonderful, I've got friends that are growing up in St. Clement Parish, so many friends who have successful careers with the refinery business. That's happening in Lake Charles, Louisiana as well. When you couple that with the investment that's happening in LNG, liquefied natural gas, is that it's a community ripe for continued growth. If we could keep those hurricanes away and give folks a chance to heal from, the damage that's been done in the past, it's a vibrant part of our state and one that's poised for growth, just like Lafayette continues to be.
So is that something, obviously, you're looking at market level data. Is investment still happening there? I think sometimes there's a belief that maybe it's not, or no one's investing in oil and gas there, but seems like I'm seeing a lot of people talking about it.
What I hear from my economic development professional friends in Lafayette and across the state is they've never been more excited about what's going on in our state.
It's cool.
Our governor, whether you're a fan or not, what I'm told is from an economic development standpoint, he is really pointing people in the right direction. Susan Bourgeois runs LED, Louisiana Economic Development. I've recently heard her speak, and she gets it.
Yeah.
And she understands that for us to help families thrive and to grow, we've got to attract quality jobs. And they, again, $100 million announced already, another $100 million in the pipeline. I suspect that if we don't get in our way, Louisiana is well poised for an incredible decade.
I saw that you said that, and you've been quoted in headlines and all over the place, because we do know that things are cyclical. Something about South Louisiana, I used to always hear, especially the Acadiana region with oil and gas, but sometimes you see really dire situations in the rest of the country, and things are rocking and rolling down here. And sometimes, the inverse sort of happens.
And Rob, if you think about our state, where we are geographically, the largest river in our continent ends in our state. You've got the Gulf. We're on the Gulf, and all the energy that goes in there. You couple that with the energy infrastructure. The reason that the Metas of the world are announcing these big data centers in our state is because of our incredible energy infrastructure and our access to water.
Mm-hmm.
That has a lot. We have some geographical advantages that perhaps we haven't taken advantage of as much as we can in the past. And hopefully, again, we've turned the ship and are starting to move in the right direction.
That really perfectly lines up with the next topic that I had, and it's really opportunities, because I think really one of the things that Catalyst Bank is doing is seeking out those opportunities, or putting yourself out there that you are a partner to meet opportunities maybe other people have. Can you give us a kind of a high-level overview? You did say we're poised for a decade of growth, in your opinion. Let's talk about those. Southwest Louisiana, Acadiana, what kind of opportunities are there?
I look at the energy sector as being critical. And again, I'm going to couple the data center projects that are going on in our state in that fold. When you look at where those data centers are going, they're in communities that have not been significant economic contributors to our state. So all of a sudden you take this area of our state that was relatively in a bad situation, and all of a sudden there's prosperity that lifts all ships. I think at the national level, we get how important energy is, and we're turning on the spigots, if you will, in nationally. And Louisiana is as well positioned to support any of that as anyone. I'm going to be sharing a slide with our advisory board this afternoon, and it shows the biggest market cap companies in our country right now. Okay, this is before the SpaceX thing, so it's not on there. But yeah, but when you look at that list, none of those companies were on the list 20 and 30 years ago. So if you think there's not new creation going on, there's still an incredible opportunity to grow something in our state. One of the other things that's interesting is the baby boom generation is retiring. What we are seeing in banking right now is you're seeing baby boomers selling their businesses, and you're seeing young people buy those businesses with new ideas and new energies and taking those businesses to much higher levels. So, I think about when I got out of college in 92, the country was probably going through a little semi-recession, and people were telling me how terrible my career was going to be because it just wasn't the same anymore. And I still hear some people preaching that. And what I tell young folks, including I've got 2 young daughters, is don't believe it. Is people are still creating tremendous things in our country. If you're willing to do the work, the opportunity is there. And I'm so blessed, again, to be in our industry where we're seeing young people step up and build incredible companies very quickly because of that transition between baby boomers and them right now.
It's so fascinating because, like you mentioned, those companies on the list that weren't around 20 years ago, there are industries that people didn't have any idea. I mean, look at SpaceX is a perfect example. Even 20 years ago, NASA was the only one doing any of that. And so now you have, I mean, Lockheed and stuff, you had contractors, but as far as a standalone company, and we saw this big IPO that just recently happened that, you look at some of these numbers, and I could be botching it, but the number of people who became tens of millionaires overnight because they were in on the ground floor of something. I always look at that because, there is a lot of fear around these new business issues, whether it's the data centers or anything.
AI is a big topic in our industry. There's going to be some bad things that come out of AI. They're going to be, but there's going to be a lot of good that comes out of AI as well. In our business, for instance, fighting check fraud, AI is incredibly helpful in doing that. And I
gotta stop you. Is it like signatures? Like,
is that what it says? No. So most of what happens is people will get a copy of your check.
Okay.
And they will go, and it's really, really easy to duplicate these days.
Oh,
and so check fraud's a big deal in our industry. We encourage our clients write as few checks as possible, because once you stick that check in the mail, that gives the bad guy a chance to get a piece of an image and then make a copy of it. And a digital recreating that now is really, really
because it used to be don't send cash in the mail. So the deal wouldn't. So check was the easier option, but man, I didn't know that.
It's so much safer to transfer your funds electronically today. We're trying to get our customers away from checks as much as we can, because the fraud risk continues to be elevated
and trackable.
AI is going to be an incredible tool in that space to help us there. And what's surprising to me now, I see news stories occasionally. AI is happening whether you like it or not. All right, it's happening. And I see these college commencement speakers where they have an AI speaker and they'll boo them off the stage. So these are 22-year-olds booing these AI speakers off the stage. And I don't get it, because there's going to be a lot of opportunity created in the AI space as well. And I recently read an article on it. It was talking about what the automobile was happening is you had people who thought there's no way this is going to replace horses. And, you're not selling a lot of carriages these days.
And we survived as a civilization.
We somehow managed to move forward. And I think AI is going to move us forward in some powerful ways. There's always going to be the bad guys who take advantage of it in the wrong way. We'll have to fight them with all we have to.
And that will happen. I want to dive in a little bit to your role as the CEO of Catalyst. Obviously, to many people, new kid on the block. If you're just hearing about kind of what Catalyst is doing, what the mission is, you said at the beginning you want to be a catalyst for this economic growth. How does that affect your decisions as a CEO? Some problem or an opportunity comes across your desk. What things are you looking at?
Our mission is at the core. And so we're looking to establish relationships with business leaders and up-and-coming business leaders. And if we form relationships early on, we know where they're going, we know who has character, and we're looking to support and fund those organizations who are looking to create jobs in our community.
Joe Zanco is here, President and CEO of Catalyst Bank, our partner for this season of Kirkpatrick and Company. I feel like we'll do a little bit of a lightning round, because I want to take a step back and say, yes, banking's where you are, it's where you've been for 30 years, but leadership has been so important for you. People who have worked for you. By the way, I've had a number of people who knew you were going to be coming by today. Tell Joe I said, hey. What is your strategy from a leadership perspective to, be very successful here, but also as a person, as a professional in this community?
But it comes down to the golden rule: treat people the way that you want to be treated. My faith life has become increasingly important to me. And if I can attempt to mirror what my God tells me to do, I'm probably going in the right direction. As I look back on some of the simple things, and I was just reminding one of my daughters of this last night, one of the blessings I had early in my career is I had a state job and we went bankrupt and I lost my job. So I was in a tough spot and I had to do some self-evaluation at that point. When I finally acknowledged that I wasn't the total package, that was very, very helpful. I have certain strengths and I have certain weaknesses. And once you start identifying them and then start to seek to orient your career to your strengths, well, you can go a long ways. And I'm a CPA, I'm an accounting degree person, but as I reflect back on where I was having success and where I wasn't, I'm not the most brilliant accounting technician, alrighty? If you stick me on a desk to do tax returns all day, I'm going to be average at best. And so that was tough for me because I wanted to be good at that as well. As when I started recognizing that that wasn't my skill set, I needed to move in another direction. And so that's what I tell people all the time. The sooner you figure out you're not the total package and you document what your strengths or weaknesses are, that's very, very important. And then as it relates to those weaknesses, you've got to be brave enough to surround yourself with people who are good where you're not. And I've been blessed over the course of my career to have been surrounded by people who had really, they were really strong where I wasn't. And so put us together and we could do some really neat things together.
So I think you kind of answered it, but what is one lesson you wish you would have known on day one, 30 years ago?
I would have invested more time in enhancing my strengths and less time investing in trying to enhance my weaknesses, because the level of effort to enhance your weaknesses, you're wasting a lot of time as opposed to if you would invest that energy in strengthening your strengths.
Let's talk about 5 years from now. Where is Joe Zanco in 5 years? Where's the bank in 5 years?
Golly, I certainly hope we'll continue to see the types of opportunities we see in the Lakeside opportunity. And we continue to expand our company. When you think about what I mentioned earlier, is Louisiana, from a banking perspective, we've lost a lot of key institutions. We've got to grow that bag. We and the other community banks in our state, we've got to get customers moving into state. When you look at the deposit data for our state, we're all required to provide a deposit data. Over 60% of our state's deposits, and it's the same in the Lafayette community, it's even worse in fact, are held by out-of-state banks. That money is not all getting invested here. Those banks are capitalists, just like you or I would be. They're going to Florida and they're going to Texas. If we get folks to deposit money and keep that in Louisiana institutions, the money gets invested here, and the economic impact that could have would just be tremendous.
I always think about the businesses you see at ballparks and on fundraiser shirts and everything that's done here. You're more often likely to see a community bank, someone who is doing things. Catalyst is one of them. By the way, that's no invitation. Don't start calling Joe for everything that you have going on, but it is just so fascinating, and it just seems so different. I don't see anyone in the market with such a community focus. It's why this is such a great partnership, and I just really appreciate the conversation.
Well, thank you. And I'll tell you, I've gotten to know a lot of the community bank leaders around this area of the state particularly. They're focused on the same things, and they're doing a great job for their clients, and we want to see them grow as well.
Joe Zanco, President and CEO of Catalyst Bank, thank you so much for coming by the vault. If you want to deposit anything or save something, I can't promise you it's very secure, but not as secure as your vaults. I just say that.
I appreciate being here, Rob. Thank you.